We're actually at episode number 15. I don't know if that's a milestone or not, but it seems like a lot. It's also flown by. And my name is Tommy Stoffel, and I'm going to introduce my co-host, David McLeod, who will tell you a little bit about today's show. David.
Oops. Sorry about that. Hi, everybody. David McLeod here, speaker, facilitator, and coach, and co-host of the Life Matters TV show. And I'm just really excited because today we have a special guest, a really good friend of mine. His name is Chris Kyle. Chris has been a member of the International Mankind Project Organization since about 1998. And he has grown and developed both as a man, as a facilitator, as a speaker, and as a storyteller, and as a teacher. And in the last couple of years, he's been working on this program called the Power of Purpose Summit, working both with men and women in one context and just with men in another context. And he has, to date, over the last couple of years, shared his teachings with almost 10,000 people. That's an amazing accomplishment, and I'm just so blessed and honored that Chris has chosen to join us today. So, Chris, welcome to the show, and I guess what I'd like to do is I'd like to start by asking you, what matters in life to you?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Tommy. Thank you, David, for having me here. It's fun to be doing this dance with you, and David, it's been a long journey for us to be collaborating together. So I'm just so excited to be here and be supporting what you guys are doing. And what matters to me, of course, this is sort of the topic today, is purpose. My own purpose and following my own heart and following my purpose and helping other people get, define and live and be fully juicified in their purpose. So that's what really matters to me. And I also am also looking at how to bring purpose more into relationship, where my wife and I is, how do you look at creating this idea of a purposeful couple where both are on purpose, and sometimes that's a challenge to have two people fully in their purpose and in relationship together. So that's a new thing emerging for me, is how do couples move through this dynamic of being on purpose together. Great.
I love that word, juicified. And Tommy, what do you think of that word?
Juicified. Yeah, it just puts energy into it, right? Because that's part of what our purpose is to carry forth this energy. Mm. And however you're delivering your energy, your being energy, your higher energy, we're doing that on purpose. And when we do it, we do our purpose on purpose. There's depth to that discussion. But the Juicify just brought up that energetic feel. Like it's about energy. It's about giving. It's about putting it out there to help others.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And Chris, you mentioned about making the couple relationship work really well with a common purpose and with spiritual focus. I think that's a really important and powerful piece as well. You want to say a little bit more about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, and I love the thread of being on this juicified thread. A lot of what I teach about and the words I use, especially with men, is coming alive. This idea of what does it mean to embody in our bodies, in our heart, in our mind, the fully integrated sense of aliveness, and having that directional sense of purpose is really, I see it so often, particularly with men, that once they get on the flow of feeling on purpose in their life, brings them more meaning. What they almost always say is, I'm feeling more alive in my life. And I think for couples, what I notice is that over time, I see it a lot with even my friends, is that there's a kind of a deadening that happens. The whole idea of that a long-term relationship kind of slips slowly into the doldrums, and there isn't a sense of juiciness or aliveness in it. And certainly one arena is just alive in the romance and the sexuality, but I think another way is alivening the sense of purpose inside the relationship, and that brings the juice, that brings an aliveness and a power for a couple that might be 10 years in, 20 years in, and they find a new track and a new path that brings juice and aliveness.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And I guess the other, when you talk about juicify, I mean, that's such a great word. I mean, have you got that domain name by any chance?
No, I need to. Hey, let me check, get that right now. No, not yet.
Go ahead, Tommy.
Oh, yeah, just the Juicify again. It brings me back to that energy, and our purpose can. We're going to talk about what blocks our purposes and what blocks our purpose, so we can start moving those blocks out of the way. But I want to also offer that a purpose doesn't always mean that you're out there necessarily in public on a stage doing something grand.
Right.
Some people can have the purpose of just carrying an energy about them. And I've met many people like this. They just carry an energy of love, or they just carry an energy of peace. And they can be doing their purpose while gardening in their backyard because they're just carrying that with them. And so I don't want people to get stuck and thinking, oh, I have to write a book and make a movie and be on stage and get on Oprah's. The purpose comes in many flavors, but it's all a matter of finding out what resonates with you, what you came here to do, and getting the blocks out of the way and getting on with it.
Yeah, thank you, Tommy. I mean, a lot of what I teach around is that purpose is more of a way of being, a choice, a way of being that moves into action. That people get stuck around purpose, that it's a form. When they start making purpose a singular form, it's no longer purpose. It's more of an activity or an action around my purpose. So we talk a lot about when I do the teaching of purpose in the Man on Purpose course, for example, we talk about purpose really being broken down into my essential essence, plus my gifts that I bring to the world, and then some aspect of aligned action that could be many different things. And it really starts with the essence that I choose to bring, that I want to bring, that may be unique to me. And it is that sort of being state that then ultimately moves to some doing state. And so purpose could be, just as you said, it could be walking down the street, giving somebody, some homeless person, some money on the street, and then feeling that compassion that is at the core of your purpose, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction to make, Chris. That's some of the stuff that I teach as well. I believe that there's only two things we need to know in this world, and one is, who am I? And the other one is, why am I here? And these are the two questions of all time. And really what I've learned for myself is I can't possibly know my purpose until I know who I am. Once I know who I am, then the purpose just becomes clear. And this fits right into what Tommy was saying. That my purpose may just be kind of like our mission statement in MKP, where it's really about a vision of the kind of world I want to create. Something that may not ever come to pass in my lifetime, but something that I'm constantly moving towards creating in my life. Yeah. And I think Tommy captured that beautifully, where it's just, I have this purpose of being an essence of love, and just bringing that and sharing it with the world.
Yeah, and the only caveat I would add to that, David, is once that you have the sense of that, almost without fail, as I know myself better, as I clear out the closet of the garbage and the detritus that doesn't serve me, and then I come into whatever that being state is, which is a more greater sense of awareness, groundedness, I'm clearer, it almost always moves towards service, David. It does move into action. It's just, it can happen in 1,000 different ways. So my purpose isn't to create this charter school. My purpose is to fuel the new education for children across the planet. Do you know what I mean? So there is something there that it will still need to move into action. And in the course that we teach, George and I teach, the Man on Purpose course, it ends with saying it's almost better that you move your juice and your passion into action rather than just think about or mull on or be in the state. That would be called a being state. But purpose does imply some movement towards service or action.
Right.
Yeah.
And you, Chris, you bring up a good point about almost needing to have one before the other. I think if that's what I'm feeling is have that sense of being, and then move it into action. Because a lot of people, I think, are trying to just jump into action. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to, and it makes for kind of a scattered existence.
Yes.
So it's really so important what we're discussing today, of getting these blocks out of the way so you can get to that sense of being, that sense of purpose, that sense of energy that you're here to bring. And I'll just lay it on the table. I did the same thing last year. I kind of had a sense of what my purpose was, but I was trying to make it happen, try to go, and nothing was working.
Yeah, that's exactly true. I do think it is an order of knowing self, grounded in self, knowing the essence of who you are and trusting that, and then moving into the next steps. Absolutely. There is a grounding in that, right? So that the actions have a ground. They actually have a ground rather than pulling and working. Oh, I could go over here. I could do this. It's like searching for purpose through activity, and that generally doesn't work.
Right.
And if I could just, David, if I can just talk about that ground for a minute, because that's sometimes an elusive term, or doesn't mean, but the grounding is the sense of, like David said, knowing who I am, and there's different ways to do that through meditation, guided meditation, get a coach, help you find that essence, or it's already there too, and we're going to talk about how to unblock it, how to free it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's another piece to the whole grounding thing too, and Tommy, you and I have talked about this in past shows, but really, when I'm grounded, then I have a solid foundation underneath me, something upon which I can stand and know that it's not going to move, it's going to be unshakable. And so that whole grounding process is really, really important, I think, and not something that we should just lightly pass over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of my teachers talks about, and you guys have probably heard the term too, is your ground of being, or what this teacher calls your essential nature. So to your point, Tommy, it's already, your essential nature is there. It's working through our personality and through our own human sort of way of being, our own ego states, that we have to work back through our material to find that place of our essential nature, which is all there. And each of us might have a unique flavor that we would talk about that essential nature. That's the kind of idea of where all these unique gems that are connected to the whole. And there is something about grounding in that place of our essential nature, and then moving from that and acting from that place. And that is the work. It is the work. And that's when we talk about blocks, we're going to talk about that basically these blocks are not only blocks to our purpose, but essentially they're blocks to ourselves, to our deeper and true nature.
Right. Well, actually, now that you've brought up that topic, I was just about to segue there anyway, but hey, Perfect. Spirit leads us where we are supposed to be going. So the real question is, before we even started this show, Chris, you talked about 3 basic kinds of blocks that you're aware of and that you work with your clients about. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that and helping us understand, the qualities of those different kinds of blocks?
Yeah, absolutely. And in working with hundreds and really even thousands of people through the summit and all the emails and things that have come back, I've really seen and have experienced 3 core purpose blocks. And these 3 core purpose blocks I've shaped in sort of my own verbiage here, but the 3 core purpose blocks that I see are the fear triad, and I'll talk about that in a moment, the fear triad, the doubting voice, or voices, plural, and then the last one that's really important, for me it's the one that I feel most stuck in even my own life, is what I call the distraction vortex, my term, the distraction vortex. So these 3, pretty much I see at least one of these trips up most everybody. Sometimes people have all 3 or some variation of all 3. I think in a way, like anything in life, we have aspects of all 3 working all the time or at different levels. But when we look at the fear triad first, is I look at 3 fears. One is the fear of survival, the fear of failure, and the fear of ridicule. And those 3 I see time and again, not only through my own experience, but through other people, that all those 3 continually work to take me away from my full expression of who I am, of understanding the gift and the essence of who I am, that it's overlaid with this constant sense that survival, which today means financial support, right? So it's really about our finances now when we talk about survival, money. And then the fear of ridicule is if I put myself out there too much, or risk doing something really different, like, David, you've kind of come from the corporate world and you're doing this very different creative work, and maybe the people in the corporate world don't really understand it, and there's a sense of laughter and ridicule, like, what the hell is he doing? That's so weird. There's a fear of that, and then certainly there's a fear of failure in general, which is just this idea that if I really put myself out there, especially in my purpose, and I fail at it, then at some level I've failed in my entire life. And that's where, when I talk about purpose and this idea of moving toward purpose, doing stuff around purpose, and then quote unquote failing around it, it's even harder than failing at a task or not getting something done. It's more like I'm a failure.
Got it.
Yeah. So I'll pause there. That's the fear triad. Do you guys have any questions about that, or?
Yeah, you just laid a foundation for like 8 more shows worth of stuff. we can dig up and unbury. Yeah, because it's all very true, right? The fear sets the paranoia in motion, or it sets the procrastination at least. And and we're afraid to move forward because we're afraid, like you said, to get laughed at or get ridiculed. It goes back to a topic that David and I talked about and joke about, is this a sense of approvalitis.
Yes.
We always feel we need everybody else's approval.
That's right.
And that blocks us. And that's an early childhood system. And it's just becoming aware of these things, becoming aware of the blocks and just saying them out loud is brilliant, Chris. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Tommy. And the simple way of working with the fears that I've seen in my own life and with the people that I work with is simply acknowledging and welcoming the fear in. Like, okay, it's here, acknowledge it, and then there's a sense of allowing it, and allowing it in a way that I embrace it. So I allow and embrace. So it's kind of and then I move from embracing it into looking at making a new choice after I've acknowledged it, I've allowed it to be there, and then I have the conscious awareness to make a new choice with that level of awareness. So it's something that my stepmother has coined a term in one of her books she wrote, which is face it, embrace it, and erase it. So face it, embrace it, and erase it. And that's kind of the flow of the erase it is really more of making a new choice so that you're not acting out of the same habitual patterns. And that's how I see the easiest way and the most direct way to work with fear. But it's not always so easy. It gets underneath and sneaky. And we all know, if you've talked about shadows on your show, those shadows, those sides of ourselves are really sneaky.
Right. So I captured this. Now I heard you say the fear of ridicule and the fear of failure. But the first one, did you call that fear of survival? Is that right?
Fear of survival. It's mostly the money. It's most people that I run into around purpose is they have a full-time job, they may have a mortgage, they have family. It's probably the number one thing that takes people away from really moving powerfully into their purpose is I can't. I've got all these bills. It's what I'm thinking about. It's just not going to make me the money. I don't have the time to do it because I'm working so hard to keep paying the bills. And it keeps taking us out of it. I've experienced that myself, and I know many, many others do. And underneath that is just simply the fear, the old brain fear of I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to survive.
Right.
My purpose, yeah.
Okay, so you talked about the fear triad. So how about the other two now?
Yeah, the doubting voice. I'll try to be quick with this. I know we want to get to an exercise and all that. So the doubting voice is a bit about what we're going to work with in the exercise at the end here, and that is that part of myself, all those voices, the internal dialogue, the gremlins, all those words that people may have heard that come into play that take me out of, again, out of either my moving closer to my essential nature, out of my gifts, out of living into my purpose. It's all those messages that we constantly hear in our own minds. I'm not good enough. How could I possibly do that? There's no way I could shuck these responsibilities to do that. I really suck at this. I'm not great at writing. Any number of variations of that. And so in the work that I teach, I've called those the inner bully voices. So these are the inner bullies, the inner voices that keep bullying us around. And it's the doubting voice. I tried to say it as sort of whatever it is that creates doubt and uncertainty and more fear. Those voices run in us all the time. Our ego mind is working overtime to keep us, quote unquote, safe, right? To keep us safe from whatever. You know, this whole idea that I know where we've come, I know the pain you've had in the past, Chris Kyle. So don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, because that may create more pain or more distance. Yeah. So
yeah, just quick on that. You're speaking my language now. I call it chatter. I call it negative chatter or red chatter, but it's those voices in our heads that are, there's root causes of all that, and fear is one of them. But and that can be worked on too. That's something, again, you address them, and we can work on that. The bully.
Yeah, and those bullies, I have names for them. They're sort of like Mr. and Mrs. Perfect, a good boy and the good girl. So what I've done is I've created archetypes so people could really have fun with them. Is sort of the play it safe Sally or play it safe Sam, or any number of these. I've created 13 archetypes, inner bully archetypes, so that what we've actually done is create a sense of play and humor, that when we notice them now, we actually have a sense of joy or kind of laughter. Oh, there's play it safe Sam again, ha ha ha. Thank you for sharing, and now I'm going to make this other choice.
Yeah.
So we brought some humor to that. Yeah.
I was going to say, it sounds like the voices that you were talking about clearly, in my mind anyway, associate quite nicely with the fears that you mentioned in the fear triad piece.
Yes.
And, yeah.
Yeah, and there's other variations. I mean, there's the drill sergeant too, which is really just constantly on you. You're not doing enough. You get it better. Go, 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 go. But you're right. Tommy said it too. A lot of this moves down to ultimately fear. Deep fear in our psyche about something. And that drives a lot of these voices, the variations of these voices. But it could be just simple wounding too. It doesn't have to be fear. It's just how I was treated as a child, and there's a message there that I'm not creative. That could be a message. That's a message I got at 5 years old. Is it's not safe to be creative.
Yeah, right.
It's dangerous. And I had that wound from my mother of doing something creative and getting completely smacked for that, and then realizing, oh, I better just do it by the book and do it great, and going out of the box is not safe.
Right.
So then there's messages that I create then around that I'm not good enough in my creativity.
Right. So now you mentioned about this distraction vortex. How about sharing about that?
Yeah, the distraction vortex is probably the one that I see now rising more and more, and that's simply what you can imagine is that we have so much coming at us day in and day out, so many distractions, from television to our iPhones to our apps to music to all the possible things we can do in workshops and programs and everything. We just have so many choices. Yeah. And there's so many things to distract us, and things that are very addictive. Video games, porn, whatever it is that pulls us in, that distracts us from our core, just giving more of our creativity and bringing more of ourselves forward, we check out, we distract. And that vortex is increasing in terms of the opportunities to be distracted, to check out. And so it's, there's a whole process of taking a look at where, and I teach that, is like where am I most distracting myself that's not healthy, and how can I then take a healthy stand to say I'm not going to do that anymore, I'm going to create some space, or I'm going to turn off my phone at X time, or not check email for these 3 hours. Any number of things where it's the purpose starts to pull you into saying this is more juicy and more fun. So right. I'm going to look at where I check out on that, and where I go into distraction vortex. And so there are some ways to work with it and make sure that I'm not getting sucked in.
Right. Great.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to look at those distractors, and if you flip the perspective on them and say, you know what, these are my opportunities to shed the history of mankind, of humankind, of getting distracted and getting pulled into all this drama and into all this technology now, and it becomes a teacher. You can look at it as a teacher. These are opportunities to step away from the Fear News Network and from Facebook or from whatever else.
Right. Yeah.
And to get back to what you said, to get back to your purpose, because you're the most happiest. You're the most happiest and the most peace when you're living on purpose and doing your purpose.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree, Tommy. And even if somebody has a charge with the word purpose, even if that person feels like they're living into their passions, it's sort of passions as the path to purpose. But either I know a sense of purpose and I feel like I'm living it, or I'm just doing all these things that I'm so excited about and I'm fired up on and I'm juicified by. And even if that's just called passions and things I love, that in and of itself will help to move away from those distractions, and those distractions become opportunities to see, why am I checking out? Yeah, exactly. What am I afraid of, or what am I not wanting to look at? And they do become opportunities for more growth, more sense of where I am and what I want.
So this is an awesome conversation. I'm just having so much fun with this, and I think we could go on for like another hour.
Absolutely.
However, I'm seeing that it's like 24 minutes after 11 here, and I know that you wanted to go through a little bit of a process.
Yes.
And you wanted me to be your guinea pig, but what I would like to do before we start that, I'm going to just send out the 7 questions that you're going to be asking. I'm going to post them here, and hopefully they'll come through on the chat so people can see them. I don't know, that's a bit of a mess, but I've at least they're in order.
Yeah, they came through.
Okay, yeah. So Chris, just go ahead, start, and I'll be your guinea pig for the next 5 minutes.
All right, David, you're my guinea pig. So what we're going to do is an exercise that I call, or a process that I call the reframe process. And the reframe process is working with that block that is the doubting voice, the inner bullies, or as Tommy called, the chatter, It's really working with the messages that are inside of me. So we're going to start, and this is basically a series of questions that are directly related. Some of them may seem obvious to you, David, and to everybody listening, but they are a way of creating a new neural pathway, of actually having the brain say something, a yes or no, and then it's now starting to weave or work a new neural pathway. So that's where we're going to go. Is we're going to work on one of your messages. So why don't we just start with David? What's what's a message that runs in your life right now? What I call a bully. What's a thing that you say to yourself?
That's easy. The message that I have constantly is always, "You're not good enough."
You're not good enough. Great.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, and we're going to do this fast. This might take a little bit more time, so we're kind of doing a speed version of this. But if you could just allow yourself to cast back into time.
Yeah.
And just find an event. There may be many, but just find an event for us to work with that reinforced or created that you know, and just briefly describe that event in your life that created that message.
Well, it actually, I know it started way earlier than this, but I do remember one very particular event that happened, and it was with my mother when I was probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old. I brought home a report card that had, A's and a few B's and maybe a C or two, and my mom said, "Well, why wasn't this an A? Why wasn't that an A? Why wasn't this?" And of course, it just reinforced the message that it didn't matter what kind of report card I brought home; it wasn't going to be good enough for my mom.
Yeah, and it wasn't going to be good enough for mom, and then you took on the belief that.
I took on the belief that no matter what I do, I am never going to be good enough.
Right. Got it. So perfect. So now we start the series of questions to tease out the way the brain works here. Okay. So did that event actually happen in your life with your mother?
The event, yes, it did. It actually happened.
It actually happened. Good.
Yes.
So you're going to say it again, because this is where we go back to what you just said. What did you come to believe about yourself coming out of that event?
I guess what I came to believe is no matter what I do, I'll never be good enough.
Yeah. So that got grounded in at that moment. Now, there may be other moments, but we're working with this moment to reframe it. Mm-hmm. So did you then, coming out of that in the weeks and months and years to come, act if that was true about you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there were many times when I let that belief keep me from doing something else. Yes.
That's right. So you made that belief. So then you made that as that's actually true. I'm not good enough.
Absolutely. Yep.
Got it. And then in this meaning that you've just said, which is that no matter what I do, I am not good enough. Mm-hmm. So there we go. Why don't you close your eyes for a moment?
Okay.
Is that belief really true about you?
No, it's not true. I can see that it is not true. When I come down into my heart, rather than let my head talk to me, I can see, no, it's absolutely not true. I am absolutely good enough.
That's right. So now your brain is already working to say, got it. I see the distinctions that are starting to unfold, this core distinction. So next is, can you see how, though, that this belief has stopped you in some parts or many parts of your life? Can you see that and own that it may have stopped you?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, I can even see it stopping me here today, right in my current life. I absolutely see it.
Good. And now just 2 more questions. This is important for the mind to get this. Is, do you want to continue living from that message, what we call the lie? Do you want to continue living in that lie or that message you've told yourself, or not?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Got it. So take a breath for the final question. Yeah. So you've just declared that absolutely you do not want to live in that lie that you've told yourself. So the last question is this, is from this place right now where you sit, declare what is true, possible, and or available to you right now. Make a declaration of what is true for you.
I am a fully empowered human being capable of making my own choices and doing whatever my heart leads me to do.
Good. Thank you. And David, that becomes your intention for this moment or for this day or for this week. That now comes an intention that is now rewiring a story that created back when, that moves through that's not true about me, and then moves into a declaration, a new choice. And that from these questions, anytime something comes up as a chatter, you can pause yourself, move back in time, see any event that might be connected to that, pull that root out by simply going through the questions and then declaring something in the space creatively, and that can be done literally in 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's
as a daily exercise. And the practice of it, it may seem subtle now, but the continual practice of that occasionally, like once or twice a week, actually starts to reframe your brain and way it works and creates new neural pathways for you.
Right. That's great. And I did notice an energetic shift in my body as I was going through that process, and I do feel more energized, and I guess the word I want to say is purpose focused. I feel more aligned with my purpose just having done that.
Great.
So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I felt your power in the declaration of your new choice at the end. Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
Beautiful.
Very juicy, David.
Very juicy, exactly.
Yeah. Very, very real and very true, man. I said this about to you before. You stand in it, you walk it, you talk it. You're better than good enough, man. You're awesome. And Chris, thanks for bringing this to us today.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Guys, I think we need to wrap it up. And David doesn't know what we're going to talk about tomorrow or next week, so I'm going to just surprise it on him right now. Next time we're going to talk about spontaneous fun.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go have some spontaneous fun next week. Until then, thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye. And thank you, Chris, for being with us. And goodbye, Tommy. And goodbye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Had a great time.